Hey people, thank you for stopping by at Building Wealth with Rajiv. I talked to two great gentlemen, Randy and Brian. Both follow Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, pretty much 24/7. They've come out with a book on Elon Musk mission. You can check out the book on Amazon. Three of us decode Elon Musk and Tesla, both from commercial and technology perspective, from a investment perspective, from the competitive advantage and how big the company can get. Hopefully you like the chat. For such meaningful discussions, please do follow my channel and do comment what you think about this conversation. You guys have written a book, haven't you? What's that?
Yes, it's the Elon Musk mission. Randy is the main author. I contribute a few chapters, and we also have some chapters from Lars Strandritter. Is that, I didn't pronounce the last name. He's in the YouTube channel Best in Tesla, which has nearly 100,000 subscribers. And also we have a chapter or two from John Gibb, who's Dr. Know-It-All on YouTube. But Randy's the main author. Yeah.
So Randy, what inspired you to write the book?
Well, you listen to a lot of the YouTubers and the Tesla and Elon Musk world, and we almost all have the same story. You're just constantly sitting there and going, how come folks don't get it? In fact, how come they are always getting it wrong? If they do get it at all, they're so constantly getting it wrong. Misinformation, disinformation, purposefully, using FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, purposely trying to send people off in the wrong direction, wrong information about things, sometimes in order to get some advantages in shorting stocks. Sometimes maybe they're in the oil industry or in the traditional automotive industry. Who knows what their motivations are? But oh my gosh, the amount of horrible information out there has caused, I don't know, maybe 100 people to get into the business of YouTubing or writing or blogging or whatever in order to try to get some factual information in front of the public. So that was the primary motivation. And
awesome. I think that's, look, I used to dislike the man a lot, because of the FUD, right? And so what I do here, Randy, you talk a bit about Elon as a businessman and human. And I think, Brian, why don't you talk a little bit about the technology? Where do you see him in technology? Randy, starting with you. As a human, as a businessman, what do you make out of Elon?
So the first book I wrote about Elon was called The Elon Musk Method. And the basic idea, I'm a manufacturer. I was a manufacturer a plastics manufacturer for almost three decades, and had 100 employees and shipping all over the world and buying stuff from all over the world. And we were vertical. Like Elon, we went from virtual, where we had making nothing ourselves, and then eventually we were 100% vertical. So I have a lot of little tiny ways that I understood Elon. So that was part of the motivation for the first book too, is I've written a lot of business books, and I could see here was another way to help entrepreneurs to kind of become better at what they do as a result of taking the best entrepreneurs, certainly of our age, maybe of all time, and learning from his skill sets. And, some of it's DNA, but a lot of it's skill sets. And what is it about him that's caused him to become the wealthiest man in the world? What is it about him that has so many people following him to where now he's this close to being the number one most followed individual on Twitter? And this was
happening. What are the top three you think is those characteristics, Randy? Talk about top three. You talk about 20, right? That's amazing. But top three.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the number one thing is the power of his vision. So he's very curious. He's read a ton. If you look at almost all the top entrepreneurs, they're going to tell you they read. They're curious. They want to know how things work. They want to know why things shouldn't be better than they are. And then out of that curiosity and out of all that reading, there's maybe a DNA part, which I totally get, which is, I got to fix it. Okay. And it's like, and you can't help yourself. People ask me, how do you write books, Randy? I say, I can't not. It's an itch that has to be scratched. I heard that even described on another channel earlier today, somebody talking about, no, the itch has to be scratched. And so when it comes to an entrepreneurial vision, You see it, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, I don't know how I can live another day without actually trying to execute on the vision. As a result, for me, I've started 40 companies.
Wow.
Some of those have gotten big. Some of them have not been that great. But Elon, it seems like every time he starts one, it's to the moon.
Yeah.
So that was kind of so the vision, having a vision, and then being able to desire, having a strong desire to execute on the vision. And then the third thing, and I spend a lot of time talking about this in the book, is the communication of the vision. You can have the greatest vision in the world. You can have strong skill sets and lots of education and have a lot of desire to make your vision into a reality. But if you can't communicate that vision to your future employees, to your customers, to your suppliers, and to your investors, it doesn't do you much good. You need all four of those. If you have investors, that's one you might not need. You might not need investors, but you certainly need employees. You certainly need customers, and you certainly need suppliers. And you have to be able to communicate that vision that you have to those individuals if you want to get sometimes even the basics. But if you're really good, what you want is you want more out of those three groups than that you would naturally get if you just walked in without a great vision. So
Amazing.
you might walk into you might go into General Motors might go into a supplier and say, we need a lot of batteries. And the supplier says, well, put some money on the table. Well, we're not ready to put money on the table. So they have this argument, and the battery supplier is like, I'm not ready to do business with you on that scale because, how do I know I'm going to actually get these orders? And how do I know you're going to make it to that level? Elon goes in and he says, my vision is to advance sustainable energy and to cause the world to go to a fully sustainable future. I am doing this and this and this to accomplish that. Here is my set of goals. Here's how many I've already made. Here's where I'm going. And when you communicate a vision like that, you get people excited, and it changes how they're willing to deal
So
with
it's purpose bigger than the transaction. It's purpose, right? Which is driving something bigger, something more than just money, more than daily survival. It's about the bigger thing. It's driving.
It's a purpose. It's a vision that's so big, but it doesn't have to. Like I say, the reason I wrote the book is it doesn't have to be a vision of going to Mars. I was a bicycle water bottle manufacturer. Okay, that's primarily what we did, was make the squeeze bottles. That's a pretty small. That's really small compared to going to Mars. But I needed to be able to talk to my employees about the vision I had for making the very first bicycle squeeze bottles that didn't leak. Now that sounds really minor, right? But no, if I have an employee coming in that I want to work for me as an engineer or as a part of the manufacturing team, I want to inspire him that we want to be the best bicycle water bottle manufacturer out there. And that if we are, people are going to use less of those plastic bottles that you throw away, and we're going to become a famous company. He's going to rise up in the ranks. You need to communicate a vision that inspires, motivates, causes people to work overtime, causes people to be excited to come to work, and causes them to use their brain instead of just putting in the time card.
Yeah, I think I get it, Randy. Amazing. And thanks, Brian, for your patience. Now, let me just come to you on. You're a technology. You write technology. Day and night,
Right,
breathing
exactly.
technology, and you work pretty much everywhere in the world, as we talked. Right, you're
Mhm.
exposed to different business leader technology. Talk
Mhm.
about Elon in terms of the technology and his technology thinking. Where do you rate him, and what's so special?
So some of the things that are particularly special are that he can take the components of a very difficult problem, start from first principles, like the physics of how things are working, and then he can extrapolate out into a system where it's profitable every step of the way. His research becomes profitable, or at least not a massive negative. Meta could be spending $30 billion trying to make the metaverse, Facebook trying to make the metaverse, every year. But Elon can go for as big or a bigger goal, and then he can take it and determine, like for the reusable rockets, he has partial reusability now where he land the booster. He started that in 2015. There were the initial grasshoppers, very small rockets. Once he got to the 20-ton orbital rocket, it would launch, and then normally the booster would be thrown away. So he would launch a successful commercial payload, and then he would try to land the booster, which would have been destroyed anyhow. So then he, failed 6 or 7 times, and then now he's landed over 100 of them. So he's, gets to the point where it's would have been thrown away, but I figure out how to land it. Unlike like the space shuttle, that was partial reusability, but it's reusing the orbiter. But then the booster stages all were thrown away. So there was no learning curve. There was no, and then when they got the orbital booster up there, it would have a heat shield, which was made of tiles, and they had to basically rebuild that heat shield every time. So it was $1 billion every time. While Elon, with the now with the super heavy Starship, which is the 100-ton class rocket, which could be as which is bigger than the Apollo rocket, will have 2 stages that will both land. And one of the aspects that people don't understand is that he's getting to, he says, fully and rapid reusable. So he's going to get fully reusable with 2 stages landing, nothing thrown away. But fully and rapidly aspect of it is that he's going to be flying it almost as much as an airplane. He'll be flying it once an hour for the booster. And the way he does that is with the launch tower, which is called Mechazilla. So you have this tower that's 50 stories tall, and it has 2 arms, which the arms are about 78% of the size of the drone ship. So the drone ship is already landed 100 times. These arms will then catch the 2 pieces of the rocket, these 200-ton pieces of it. And so it's like a giant standing robot that's catching these rockets. So then the 2 pieces launch, and then a few minutes, the first part, the bottom part detaches, comes back, lands on the chopstick arm of a Mechazilla tower, lands on it, and then it refuels and goes right away. Versus the fastest they've reused a Falcon 9 booster stage is 21 days. Because it lands on the ocean, you have to bring it back, you have to move this very heavy object, especially with fuel. So everything is thought through to how do I get to this goal of using it as much as an airplane? And then that, go ahead.
No, this is fascinating, Brian. I think a bit technical also. So, but one thing, why NASA couldn't do it?
So NASA, they don't actually, the organization itself doesn't actually build the vehicles. They contract it out to Lockheed, to Boeing and stuff like that. And basically Boeing lost their mojo, engineering mojo back about 20, 30 years ago, where they went to, where the business people, the MBAs took over, engineers kind of like took a back seat.
Yeah.
You saw that with the problem with the 737, with the Dreamliner, the problem that they had with their planes. You see that with their rockets. So they are a consortium of companies that are building the Space Launch System, right? Which is just flown once, great for them, right? But that cost, $30-40 billion, and the more for the Orion part. And that rocket, the plan was we take Space Shuttle, which is working, restack it into an Apollo rocket. They had this is the 3rd go of it. So a constellation before that, and another project before that. So it's taken them over 30 years to get to this point of launching once. So why couldn't NASA do it? Because their contractors were busy saying, just give me my $2-3 billion every year. I'll do some work. And then I'm not going to, if I succeed or fail, it doesn't matter. I don't have to get better. I can just give me my money, and it's like a corporate welfare. So they have no urge to do it, and they're not focused on pushing things forward.
Yeah, Randy.
That actually kind of brings us back to point 1. So I was no fan of John F. Kennedy, but his and my politics are not necessarily the same. But John F. Kennedy said, in 1961 or two. I forget exactly when it was, but I think it was 61. He said, "We're going to land on the moon, within this decade." That was a vision that caught the attention of the world, caught the attention of America, caught the attention of young people that were in high school and college at the time to switch their careers to engineering and want to go to NASA, want to become astronauts. The whole country became excited about this vision, and then it's got to be done in this time slot. So you're no longer looking at, wow, I need to make money on this, or I need to make my career out of this. What you're looking at is, I want to be part of the vision.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, and the way Brian summed it up, right? I have worked for larger companies, and they all work like this, right? Give me this, and that is enough. And rather than having the first principle thinking, I think that's why we need people, entrepreneur like Randy, maybe you, or maybe Elon, or people like Brian as well. So I think let's just go to Elon's creation now. Okay, I think if you talk a little bit too much about Elon, it might sound like Elon fanboys. I think.
Oh no, not that.
No, so let's just be objective. Yeah. So Tesla, Randy, commercially, how do you look at Tesla's success? What are the catalysts working for Tesla? Let's say if I want to invest in Tesla, why should I invest in Tesla? Is it the best investment out there, or is it? What do you think, Randy, commercially?
It is a story that you could spend this hour and another hour and another hour after that talking about. So you can start with what everybody thinks Tesla is. Okay, the average person on the street thinks it's a car company.
Car company, automotive.
So let's just go with the car company. Okay, the car company in 2016, I think it was, that Elon Musk said, here's how many cars I'm going to build in 2020. He hit the number practically on the nose. Now he's saying that next year, that he's going to continue to build at 50% a year, and that he's going to build it to 20 million vehicles. Way before he gets to 20 million vehicles, he will be the largest dollar volume and most profitable car company in the world. Toyota and Volkswagen, that do about 10 million cars a year, don't have nearly the revenue or nearly the profits that Tesla will when they're probably around 5 or 6 million vehicles, not even counting full self-driving, not counting software, just on vehicle sales alone. So he's made a vehicle that is way better in pretty much every regard: safer, faster, quicker, more fun to drive, has a completely different and unique style, both outside and inside, in particular for the driver. People describe it as a computer on wheels. He's done it at a price that people that are first movers are able to afford. And then slowly but surely, he wants to get it down to a price that the average person out there can afford. So if you just take the raw car company,
20 million vehicles is correct.
And you project it out to 2030, and you say it's 20 million vehicles a year at, let's even say, $40,000 each, and you say that it's a 30% profit, which is where they are now, or even a 17% final, EBITDA. Any way you count it, it will be by far the largest company that's ever been on the face of the earth. So that's just the car company. Now layer on or full self-driving, layer on robotaxis, layer on the possibility of an Optimus humanoid robot, layer on their energy stations, if you will. What are we going to call those, by the way? The supercharger stations. They have 40,000 of them already, and they're going to have 100,000 within a year. 2 years, roughly 2 years, I think they're planning to have 100,000 of them. So if General Motors was also all the mobile stations or all the Shell stations, what would that do to their business? And then you can layer on the insurance company, and you can layer on the energy storage. Yeah. This is the one that we've been talking about the most for the last couple of weeks. And the story on energy storage is not being told. They are.
I want to come back to the energy storage story to you, Randy, because I don't know much about that part of the business. And I was hearing an interview with Warren this morning, and you guys were getting technical about it. I'm not that technical, but We'll talk about. I'll go to Brian now. And Brian, I want to ask you about Tesla's technology competitive advantage versus what we have. I talk to a lot of my friends in India or in Korea. Everybody's saying, oh, they have a EV, they have a EV. BYD is there in China, which is coming with a EV, right? Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger's investment. Now, from a technology perspective, how do you see Tesla is placed? What's the technology advantage Tesla has?
So they're making their own full self-driving chip. And they also were able to, during the chip shortage that hurt the other car companies, Toyota, Ford, GM, all down 10, 20, 30% in terms of their production because they were short semiconductor chips. The old semiconductor chips that most cars used were from chip factories that are 10 to 20 years old, right? Because they wanted the cheapest chips. But they would need to use a couple thousand per electric vehicle. So Tesla has, the main chip, the smart chip, they made their own, and they're getting it built by, Samsung or TSMC, but the design is from them. So they can design their own computer chip. But their software programmers, they only have, 150 working on AI for the FSD, but they're out competing teams with 3,000 people. And they were able to rewrite the firmware. So, the low level code, so they could onboard and use other computer chips. Like there were like 12 companies making computer chips, 12 main companies, and they were able to use and source from many companies, while the other companies like Ford, were using Renesar in Japan. They had a fire and they were down in terms of their chips. They couldn't switch out. So Tesla was able to switch out in 2 weeks. So they have this massive technological capability on that. And then for their full self-driving neural network, they have exaflop computers, multiple ones. One with using NVIDIA GPUs, and another one using their own designed chips, which they're trying to stand up with the Dojo supercomputer. So they have these massive supercomputers to crunch the massive amount of data that they get from their systems. So they get like gigabytes of data every day from every car, and they put into every car they made since I think 2017 the hardware so they can do the full self-driving. So even though only 10%, 15% of people bought it, the self-driving system or the autopilot, they put in the hardware at a cost of a couple $1,000s per car to have the cameras and systems to do it. So that now that they've just released full self-driving version 11 to 350,000 people in the United States and Canada, then if other people like it, they can say, okay, I tried it in my friend's car. I think I do want to get it. I didn't get it before when I bought my car 5 years ago, but now I want to get it.
Networking.
And now they just click the button, it loads up, it activates, and then they can use it. So all of the 3.5 million cars that are already out there can all become, full self-driving capable once people choose to have it. So this forward thinking of technology. We're going to make it so that everyone's ready to go with this stuff. So it's not just that they're ahead on these things, and I view it based on the total miles driven. That they've driven billions of miles with the autopilot, which is the more driver assist system, but they've driven 10 million miles per quarter with the full self-driving, but that doesn't include highway. But now with the version 11 does. So now they're taking over highway driving from autopilot. So the amount of miles that you're getting from that will rapidly scale to the billions.
Oh yeah.
When you scale to the billions, then basically you're at Uber scale with 3 million cars and 40 billion miles driven. So that's when you have, robotaxi, autopilot, that level. So it's about getting massive amounts of miles driven. So it uses them to train it up, and it uses it to actually be a system. Like if you're only driving 1 million miles, which is what all the other companies that Waymo does. Waymo does close to 1 million miles per quarter, but still it's tiny. A couple thousand cars for them, 300 cars for Cruise. Everyone else is doing tiny stuff. Yes, I didn't have a driver, but if it's in a hyper mapped location where I have to map everything. I'm only in a suburb of Arizona, of Phoenix, and now I get to go downtown
No,
Phoenix.
no match. No match
No
there.
match. Just a scale. The business plan
No,
doesn't
I
scale.
think, Brian, this is more about the AI, autonomous capabilities. Now, for a moment, Randy, I'll come back to you on energy storage. I'll finish with Brian on this. That take out the autonomous at the moment and take a pure EV, like, I'm driving, I
Mhm.
take a EV and go, and I don't use autonomous track capabilities.
Mhm.
Is there any superiority with Tesla
Yes.
versus others? What's that?
So if you compare the efficiency, how much battery the Teslas have, so they can get 60 or 80 kilowatt hours, and they can match up with the miles driven for a car with 20 or 40% more battery. So someone else has to put in 100 kilowatt hours battery, 120 kilowatt hours battery to match an 80 kilowatt hour Tesla. So that costs more, and then so the efficiency, miles per kilowatt hour that they get is better. So that's the power system, the electronics of how they manage the batteries. So there's a lot of non-trivial engineering that goes into making it lighter, more efficient, fewer parts, cheaper to make. But just fundamentally, just because if I have 20%, 30% less batteries, my car weighs less, and I can make more cars because I can make 20, 30% more cars with the same number of batteries.
Scalability is higher, and then that can
Scalability is
reflect
higher.
in the price. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the efficiency is there.
Yeah, I think if you look at it from the top down, is you have 30% margins. Let's say that BYD has a car sitting next to the Tesla and they're identical, which they're not. Let's say the BYD's is just as safe, which it isn't, because Tesla wins all the safety competitions. Let's say BYD's is just as quick, which is not. Teslas are far quicker than any other cars on the road. Let's say that it'll go just as far on the battery pack, just for fun, Brian. We'll just pretend, which it won't. Okay, let's just say all those things are equal. Just go down the line of all the specs and they're all equal. BYD has zero margin on the car compared to 30% margin for Tesla. So now, if Tesla wants to downgrade their car a little bit, they can make even more money. Okay, they put a little less. Let's say right now they're talking about this. What was it called today? Highland? Yeah, the Highland version, which is going to potentially come out by the third or fourth quarter of this year. It's kind of in the rumor stage right now, but all they're talking about is taking a Model 3 and downgrading it a little bit, making it a little less expensive to build. Maybe the seats are a little less expensive. Maybe the tires are a little less expensive. Just taking out a little bit here and taking out a little bit down there in order to get the price down by, I don't know, $5,000 or $10,000 at retail. So the other companies don't have this kind of versatility. They don't have this capability to move on a dime like Tesla does, because Tesla's starting with such a lead. The lead is overwhelming. I've been following the stock market.
Is it a few years? The lead,
I would
or a
say
few months.
this is assuming Tesla stopped right now.
Okay.
They have the brightest engineers in the world, but let's just say they stopped innovating tomorrow. Elon came in and said, it's not fair.
Okay.
Let's stop innovating. Let's give these guys a chance. Well, it would take 7 years, 6 to 7 years.
Are you kidding me? 6 to 7 years?
6 to 7 years before.
So here's how you look at for the traditional auto companies. One, Toyota is not making EVs other than the BZR or whatever that had some wheels falling off, and then but Ford and GM, they're at about 50,000 cars per year, something like that, maybe 100,000 cars per year, which is where Tesla was several years ago. And then they said, okay, we will make X number of car factories and battery factories, which is basically saying we'll get to the 1 million car level in 2025. So just on that, you're 4 years behind, because Tesla was in 2021 with 930,000 cars, right? So they're saying we'll get to where Tesla was in 2021 and 2025 if everything goes right. So then, but then BYD's, I think maybe a bit closer, but they're the profitability aspect, but they're like the Huawei or whatever, the cheap China phones to the Apple iPhone, where Apple makes 89% of the profits, and then they make
that was a good
the cheaper.
example that
Yeah.
Apple may have lesser market share, but the profitability share is much higher, right?
Yeah, but the car market is different. I think that the 50% of the Chinese cars below $25,000. So of the 28 million cars they make a year, 14 million of these cheap cars, 25% are super cheap at less than $10,000, $5,000, basically moving golf carts. But then the 50-60% is where they'll be competing more. If Tesla comes down to the $25,000 car level, which is the plan for the 2024, they're gonna then compete. So Tesla's competition is coming for the $25,000 car, but they won't go down to 20,000, at least for a long time. So there is a large segment where a BYD can rack up a lot of numbers, right? And then some cheap cars in Europe. Not really many cheap cars in the United States. Pretty much people use used cars there, but we'll see what happens with that. So there's a smaller segment for the cheap car versus a larger segment for cheap phones. But it'll be substantial, and for a while they could be ahead. But
and Rajiv, one of the things that Elon Musk says all the time is he hopes BYD is successful. He hopes Mercedes comes out with a great BEV car. He hopes that Hyundai and Kia, he hopes they all do great, because our prediction in the book and in the Elon Musk mission, our projection is that by 2027, 90% of the cars that are being manufactured, maybe even more than 90%, will be BEVs. Well, Tesla is only going to be making about 12 million of those.
What is BEVs? EVs.
Battery electric vehicles.
Battery electric as opposed to hybrid. Okay. So battery electric vehicles, we're going to need 60, 70 million in order to hit that number being made every year. And Tesla's going to only be at about 12. So you're going to need a couple of million, 3 million from General Motors, and a couple of million from Ford, and 3 or 4 million from a Hyundai, and probably BEV. Our prediction, I think our whole group agrees, BYD is probably going to be number 2. They'll probably be the second largest maker.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I think, Randy, I want to come back to the untold story you're talking about, energy storage, because I look at the numbers all the time for Tesla. That's even the last call, right? Sometimes I don't attend Elon's call because it gets a bit boring, right? He gets into the engineering lessons and, physics professor, he starts talking like sometimes he start preaching. So it's not a very interesting one for me, but however you admire the man. So, but the energy business isn't really picking up, right? I mean, I don't see the numbers racking up really, isn't it?
All right. So here's what's going on. So the energy storage, first of all, for those in your audience that don't understand what the energy storage business is, if you're going to have solar and wind energy at any scale, I'm not talking about in your home, or in the neighborhood or something. I'm talking about if you want a utility-sized energy production facility from wind or from solar, you have to have some kind of energy storage, because the solar and the wind, they don't go 24/7. Sometimes the wind blows, sometimes it doesn't, and the sun never produces much energy at night. So you want to be able to store the energy during the day when you're making more of it that you need, and then you want to release that energy back into the system at night when you're not producing. Now that kind of storage can happen a lot of different ways. A perfect example of storage is the water behind a dam. Okay, that's energy storage. And then when it's released, it turns the turbines and turns it into energy. But we need some kind of an artificial storage in order to make these systems work. So the way to do it, apparently right now at least, everybody seems to be pretty much on the same page. The number one way to do that is by using these same batteries that you're putting in the cars, the lithium-ion batteries, and they can be various different chemistries. That's a little bit too much in the weeds for today. But Elon Musk started planning at least 4 years ago for a future where the entire world is going to run on solar batteries. And in order to have the whole world run on solar batteries, you got to make a bunch of them. So 2 or 3 years ago, he told all the battery companies in the world, he said, I will buy all the batteries that you can make. And so a bunch of them started making more batteries. He said, give me a number that you can make for me, and I'll sign the purchase order now. Then he says, okay, I'm going to make my own batteries, and I'm going to make 2 terawatt. I'm going to put up 2 plants rather. Each of them will be able to do 100 gigawatts of energy storage a year. And so he starts building those, and everybody goes, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to these other battery guys? Elon comes out and he says, no, keep making as many as you can. I'll make mine, but I need every one you can possibly make for me. Well, then the uproar became, where are we going to get the raw materials? Where are we going to get enough lithium? Where are we going to get enough nickel? Where are we going to get enough? Name the earth material that you might need. Carbon is the latest one. Everybody's a little worried about how are we going to get enough carbon. So Elon, again, 3 or 4 years ago, was already talking to the miners and the refiners, saying, I'll take all you can, all the raw materials you can possibly supply me. And he said, at least a year ago, if you guys can't make enough, I'll mine my own. And then three months ago, he says, well, if you can't refine enough, I'll open my first refinery down here in South Texas. So Elon has an attitude of whatever it takes. It doesn't matter if I have to sleep on the factory floor, if I have to spend my last dime to save my company, if I have to work 120 hours a week for months on end, that's what I'll do, whatever it takes. Nobody else has that attitude. I guarantee you, nobody else has the same attitude. As a result, he's got all this mining already lined up. He's got all this refining already lined up. He's got all these batteries already lined up. But there was a crossing point 3 months ago, when I first started talking about this, when nobody was talking about it. If you want to know what's going to happen next, you need to read our book, because between Brian and Lars and John and myself, we're not talking about what's in the news. We're talking about what's going to be in the news in a few months.
In the future. I think that's what I love. Randy, now, before I go to Brian on the technology part of it, tell me how big this business could be.
Okay, so Elon has already said it'll be equal to the size of the auto company and maybe larger.
Has he said that?
He's already said that 3 years ago. Yeah, and he's reiterated it more recently. The energy business is massive. First of all, you got the batteries that go in the home, okay, that do support your rooftop solar. Then you got the batteries that go in the neighborhood that are going to back up kind of regional or local storage. And then you've got the industrial side, the commercial ones that go into businesses and government buildings and that type of stuff. Then you need the ones that go in the energy stations that go along with the solar and the energy that's going to be used at these filling stations, if you will. What are we going to call them, Brian? Anyway, so you need massive numbers of batteries. I'm going to get this number wrong because I'm always having power of 10 problems, Brian. So help me out here. He said we need 100 terawatts.
So it's 300 terawatt hours. The full transition is what they're ballparking.
But how many per year?
Well, per year, they're looking to get up to 10 terawatt, 20 terawatt hours per year.
Per year. And he's going to supply 3 of them. And he's only going to supply.
Yeah.
So,
and last year we had 300 gigawatt hours for all the cars. This year, about 600 gigawatt hours. So basically, we're looking at another 500x to get to where we need to be. And in terms of you're saying, where are we in terms of growing this business? The last quarter had Q3 had $2 billion of energy, nearly double from about a billion.
Okay.
Things were slowed down again because of chip shortages and that stuff, because they use the same chips and they make more money off the cars. But now chip supply, battery supply, all not issues. So now they have the Lathrop plant in California, which is going to make 40 gigawatt hours and ballparking $1 billion per gigawatt hour. So that would be $40 billion per year if they can get that to fully ramped, which could happen in 2023. They made this year making about $80 billion in car revenue. So Lathrop fully ramped is about half of the revenue of that. And then profitability comes with scale. So we'll tipping point for the energy thing being really significant is basically next year.
Okay.
So what happened was there was at the earnings call, was it, or was it at AI Day 2? Was when Elon or somebody on the panel said we now have enough batteries for the energy side. Up till that point, they were emphasizing cars. We need enough batteries to put in the cars, but they got to the place where they had enough batteries to
Okay.
for the cars for the future. Now they can put it
Okay.
into
It's
energy.
it's a supply issue, as I
It was a
understand.
supply issue. Now here's the crazy part. So this is not investment advice.
No,
Okay?
no, it is not.
So you go from two terawatt hours per year or quarter, was it, Brian?
2 gigawatt hours. 2 gigawatt hours per quarter.
Per quarter?
Yeah.
Per quarter.
Yeah, per quarter.
To 10 gigawatt per quarter, starting probably in January. Maybe it'll be March, maybe it'll be April. We're not 100% sure of the ramp because there's no information yet on the ramp. But we're going to be in that range. Sometime probably mid next year, we'll be in the 40 gigawatt run rate. That's from one Lathrop plant. But the issue is you can pop those plants. It's nothing like building a car plant. We're talking about stuffing a bunch of batteries into a container and wiring them up. That's the line. I mean, it's nothing like putting together an automobile. And so you can pop these, now that they've made the first one, you can cookie cutter this thing, put one in London or England, put one in India, put one in Indonesia, put one in South Korea. You can put them all over the world. And now you can, every time you put one of those up, it's almost the equal of starting another Berlin in terms of gross dollars and gross profit.
I think, look, you're painting a very different picture, not a different picture, very exaggerated picture of what I have, Randy. And, you guys have studied the company far more than I have. So, I take you on your face value. But tell me one thing, 2030, for example, and I think we have this habit of talking decades, right? 2030, I know, Randy, you're an entrepreneur more than an investor, and Brian, you're a technology guy. What is the size of the company you are? And I know you're talking about cutting it off and having different companies. That's another debate, right? But let's say one consolidated identity, right? What's the sales you're looking at?
So you have to, so you can, it's almost impossible to do this. If you talk to Warren this morning, you know that he's got the back of the napkin math where it's $100 trillion. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, he looked a bit, he looks a bit, I think he looks a bit too bullish to me, Warren. I don't know.
Here's the part where in fact, I did an interview with Warren. You can find it online. I think it was released about last Monday.
Yeah.
It was last Monday, a week ago Monday.
Anyway, I heard this morning.
Okay, so that particular interview, what I try to do is say, look, there are large number issues. Okay, the large number issues are if you are in fact going to make make or buy 3 terawatts of energy, and the whole world is going to be demanding 10. And you're making 3 of it. And now at some point, the supply and the demand are going to cross. Okay. It may not be in 2030. I said this to Warren, maybe in 2032. That's what he thought, 2032. I think it'll be in 2028. So I'm estimating that supply demand on energy storage will cross, or all batteries, let's put it. Supply demand will cross about 2028 because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that want to make the money. Everybody gets it. Every lab in every university in the country that does this kind of stuff is on full on. We got to find a way to be in this business. Well, you got that much energy going, you're going to have somebody else come up with something, or maybe you have 100 people doing this, doing a little bit, or you got a couple doing a lot. Anyway, I'm saying it's going to happen sooner. Any way you cut it, if they're doing 3 terawatts of total batteries, whether they're in cars, robots, or in energy, if they're doing 3 terawatts in 2030, it's going to be I don't know, 10 trillion in sales. You have a number? Brian, have you?
I have
let's
I
hear
have
from
plenty.
Brian.
I have plenty of numbers for it, but it is the thing where because they're ahead and because it's very difficult to catch up, because if you're making $12 billion the last 12 months already, they made $12 billion, and if this quarter comes in with 450,000 cars, then you're going, and they get $1 billion recognized because of the full self-driving, then they could be at $7 billion in this quarter. So then the acceleration of money just doubled from the $3.6 billion last quarter. So the insane profitability that they have is from these partially still baby level businesses relative to where it's going to be, right? So if they do change the world of energy, and they change the world of transportation, it is, and they do it in an insanely profitable way. Just like when Apple said, okay, we make the smartphone, Nokia's at $100 billion. Oh, if we make as many phones than Nokia, we'll be at no, they become 30 times bigger than Nokia, right? Even though they're making only 3 times as many phones, it's because they went from $102 phones to $1,000 phones, and they got 50% profit on it, right? So then they become 30 times bigger than Nokia ever was, right? So because Tesla's coming in and saying, I'm going to totally revamp the car business, where you guys were basically losing money or barely making money on new cars and only making money on service by overcharging for parts to repair the car or for service to lend money to buy the car, right? I come in with a new model, this new high-tech model, just like Apple and Google, and say, no, I'm going to make 30%, maybe even 50%, because I'm getting software margins on the software stuff. And then I will then upgrade this thing with new technology later on, so that yes, your car still works, but I want to get the latest and greatest thing. I'll keep upgrading. So it's that kind of like Appleization of the thing, where you got the iTunes market, where I'm making money off apps and stuff, transforming what was the phone business, into the smartphone iTunes business. Same thing for Tesla, that they take the car business, transform it into the smart car, transform it into a self-driving robotic car, and add apps that you're paying for, right? And you're doing it at this high level thing. So I don't need to make my car crappy or something like that, or worry about repairing, how to make fewer parts of it, make it very reliable, because it's just a platform for me to make even more capabilities. And of course, it's for him just a launching point to transforming the world of energy transportation, because there's be plenty of ways to continue to deliver more.
So I think this simple thing I just want to ask you guys. Look, I think you guys are very technical, and you've done your maths, right? Both Brian and can it be 10 times what it is now by 2030?
Oh yeah. So here's the, going back to what we talked about, I don't know, half an hour ago or so. Most people look at it as a car company. Well, I think by now your audience probably gets it's a car and energy company at least. If you follow it, it's a technology company. So at its root, it's a technology company. But if it's just a car and energy company, and they do 3 terawatts which I just, it's not something where it's not like the robot, the Optimus robot, where you go, well, they showed a kind of working, it kind of worked, maybe it doesn't work, maybe it will work, maybe it won't. No, building the cars, they've proven they can do it. Building the cars as the very best car in the world by a lot, they've already proven that they can do that. They've already proven that they can build the energy storage stuff, and they've proven that they can sell all they can make. They have their order list is up going into 2024. So they've proven that they have the demand. They've proven that they've got the quality. They've proven they've got the product. They've proven they can make money on all this stuff. So now it's just a matter of continuing to plop down more factories. Just execute with more factories, more factories, more factories. And then, as we talk about in the book, this is all being done with no marketing. There's no advertising.
He doesn't need marketing. He
He
himself
doesn't
is a
need it. But if he ever,
walking model, right?
but if he ever needed it, now he can start pulling the demand. Like for instance, what do you think it would do to sales if they took 5 minutes in the Super Bowl? It would
Yeah.
just change everything, just like that's what Apple did, right? So anyway, let me just finish this thought. So that's the car company and the energy business at 10 billion in sales. Okay. I'm sorry, 10 billion. I'm wrong.
10 trillion, you said 10 trillion.
No, not sale, not 10 trillion. Apple's
10
now
billion.
Apple's now at 3. Yeah, it would be 10 trillion. Yeah. It'd be 10 trillion. 3 terawatts, 330, not 500 like
That's like 50 times from now. It's like
yeah,
20,
Right.
22 billion dollar company right now.
It's a
that's
$600 billion company.
right. And that's just
60 billion
cars.
dollars.
That's just cars and energy. Now you add on the software, you add on the stations, the energy stations, you add on the insurance, you add on a humanoid robot, you add on the possibility that their dojo computer system is going to be doing training of other people's neural networks in the same way that AWS is doing cloud storage now, which is the biggest part of Amazon. That's their number one profit producer. So nobody's even talking about Dojo, but Dojo's done. Dojo's should be operational within a couple of months at least, if it's not already. So you have all this other stuff that's bigger than the car and bigger than the energy that is potentially going to hit in addition to that 10 trillion.
So I've done some calculations of timing of things, and I think that next year is when this becomes significant. So currently, this year, the FSD, full self-driving, autopilot, stuff like that, it was only about 4%, 5% of the net income, because only 10% of people were getting it. Only half of it could be recognized. Now all of it would be recognized, so it goes to 8%. The energy business was about 10% of revenue, but it was not making much profit.
Mm-hmm.
But once it scales up to that 40 gigawatt hour thing, $40 billion, that should have about 20%, 30% margin. So next year is when the contribution to net income goes to about 50%. So it goes from 4% up to 50%. So it's going to be a turning point next year, because of the fact that if you get like 20% margin off of the $40 billion of energy, then that's $8 billion, right? So it goes from nothing on profit to 8 billion, just like you're scaling the Berlin and Austin factories from small numbers to big numbers. The profits come when you get to the bigger numbers.
Yeah.
And then also the full self-driving, which they just fully released to 350,000 people, that right now the adoption rate is only 10 to 15%. How do we get more people to use it, right? Because if you get half the people to use it, then you've doubled the profits of the company from the software. I think they do it on two ways. One is, once they're fully confident it's safer, or 3 to 4 times safer than human drivers, average human, or 90, better than anyone but the top 10% of human. What they can do is, all you guys who are not that good at driving, where we're better at driving than you guys are, you still have to overlook this thing, but your insurance in the United States, which is more expensive because of the lawsuits, is $2,000 to $4,000 per year. I will cut that by $1,000 per year. I'm still paying $1,000 insurance, but now instead of paying $2,400 for a subscription per year, my bundle of FFD, full self-driving, and insurance is only a combined $3,000. I was paying $2,000 of just insurance. Now I pay $3,000. And if I'm a really bad driver, a $4,000 insurance policy, I can do it for free. Or basically, like I was paying $4,000 insurance. Now I'm paying $4,000 for my insurance and my FSD. And then Tesla can monitor whether I'm using it. So by bundling it together, they can say, now let's get half the people to use it by saying, we're confident that you can get on this thing and it'll be safer. I still want you to kind of overlook it just in case, but pretty much it's like I'm looking over the shoulder of my digital chauffeur, right? So that's how things could rapidly change on that. And it's just easier and tougher to use. You see people, in the videos now doing it, the wife is now saying, I'm pretty confident now. I wasn't confident before, but now I'm getting confident with it. So that level of safety and stuff. So that's where things just explode, where people just like, oh yeah, I'm going to use it. It's not going to cost me that much more when I factor in the fact of insurance. And then that's where the combination of insurance and the software, because Tesla knows how safe you are, because they can have all the data.
So can we talk? Can we just get a number from you, Brian and Randy? You talk about 10 trillion of that. I just, I'm a bit of a number guy in there. Are we looking at a 15 trillion company?
At least, probably way more.
So the thing is, if they actually do solve robotaxi, and 20 million cars driving 50,000 miles a year at $1 per year, that's like $1 trillion, and it'd be virtually all profit. So you can get to $1 trillion of net income, just off the robotaxi plus energy and stuff like that. So you could be at $2 trillion of net income by 2030. So then, if you have the insane growth leading up to that point, and there's still more to happen beyond that, because you're going to you still have to replace 2 billion cars or do whatever, and there's still only 10% of the way through to getting to 300, or even like 5% of the way through to getting to 300 terawatt hours of storage, right? So $2 trillion, and you're still going to grow for another decade or two, right? Because you're solving all of energy and transportation, right? So yes, it's like, oh yeah, he practically owns the world, but it's like, unfortunately, or fortunately, that's the way the exponentials kind of work. And it's like, oh, would people believe that of Apple back when they were smaller than Nokia? So it's because it's a tech company coming in with massive tech margins into these old industries and totally changing them. That's where the numbers get nutty.
And Rajiv, we're not even talking about the robot, and the robot has the biggest TAM of all. The totally addressable market on the robot is unlimited. There is no limit to the number of robots.
Look, conceptually,
that's a whole nother subject.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you want to take the time to talk about the robot. But what I do want to do, I want to give you a chance to make news. Okay.
What's that?
The news today, which a couple of people are actually talking about. I'm shocked that a couple of people have already done a little bit of the math. But Tesla announced today that Austin has a goal of 750,000 vehicles in the first quarter. This was way beyond
what most imagine. Yeah,
most people's math. Okay, I don't know where you were. Did I just say 750,000? Sorry, yeah. 75,000. 75,000 cars in the first quarter for Austin, which is way higher than anybody's model. Maybe not Brian's and mine, but because I think we're modeling in the book 350,000 for the year. But most people were nowhere close to 350,000 for the year. But this announcement that's their goal for the first quarter at Austin, which is behind Berlin. So we got to figure Berlin's got to be close to that 350,000, that 75,000 in the first quarter too. Now we're talking about 350,000 at each facility. And the street is still sitting at about 2.2 million for next year. No, those numbers, we're talking about 2.7.
Oh God. Okay. Are you guys even taking care of execution risk? Because I know this is like all hunky-dory, right? We have this, and no doubt the company has broken records and all that stuff, but the execution risk, I mean.
Yeah, though the execution risk was like, for myself, earlier in 2022, I was projecting, 1.7, 1.8 million. Now we're going to end up with 1.4 million cars, something like that. Because they're highly dependent upon China, COVID shutdowns hurt big time, right? So that 2-month shutdown took out 100,000 cars, and it delayed the expansion to add another 100,000 on. So if you have another COVID thing, right, in China, and they shut down for 2 months, that's going to slow things down a lot, right? So these big hits happen. But with Austin and Berlin ramping, then it'll be, okay, I got, Fremont, Austin, Berlin, and China. It would be less of a hit. But then the second China factory is coming in. So there still will be this China dependence thing. When the perhaps inevitable problems occur, then you end up with the roller coaster, right? Where things happen. and there could be stuff like, someone does get killed with FSD, right? So then there'll be, a bunch of
Headlines.
investigations, headlines and stuff, and stock will take a hit.
Another
So
fun.
the roller coaster will take
Continue.
these dips.
Because that's
right?
part of
So
innovation. That's part of disruptive innovation, isn't it?
Of course. But here's the deal. The stock's sitting at, this is not investment advice.
Yeah.
The stock is still sitting under $200 a share as of this morning. And let's just, for fun, say that the stock, if they execute perfectly, that the stock, according to our estimations, the stock should be somewhere around $1,200 a share.
Oh,
Okay, right in next year, it should be at $1,200 a share. If you give it even a 65 multiple, which is kind of a low multiple of next year's earnings, which we're estimating at $20 a share. Okay.
Actually, I have higher numbers for
you have a higher number now than $20? Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's $40 because of not factoring in the Inflation Reduction Act, which
are you guys not believer on PE ratios and all that, or DCF? Are you guys not believer of that? The numbers are so low.
No. Well, you can believe in that, but if the thing is that if the earnings grow and it's a fast growth company, then you'll have a pretty high PE. It'll earn a high PE, right? So if it gets to $40 billion, and I can go through why I think it can get to $40 billion, because if you get 600,000 cars in Q1, right, 600,000 times $50,000, that's $30 billion, right? So, and you grow to 800, 900,000 cars in Q4, right? Then you're looking at 2.7 times 180. $170 billion just off the cars, and then $40 billion for the energy, right? The $220 billion. So you're almost tripling the revenue from this year, right? And you have to have all this profitability. But the other factor is the Inflation Reduction Act. Even though they don't get the same $500 directly, you're basically saying, here, have a 13% discount on the lower end cars, Model X, Model Y, and Model 3. 13% discount on the cars. And then for your energy storage, you get basically a 15 to 30% discount, right? So you already had all these projections where it's like, okay, we're going to do such and such demand. But if you didn't redo your model because the US is giving away all these tax breaks for energy storage, for electric cars, the products that Tesla makes, saying, here, a 10-year-long Black Friday sale for all these things. And we're just going to keep giving you energy. So if they get to, 5 years to 1 terawatt hour of their own batteries, then, they're saying here's $45 billion in energy in tax credits for just in net income from the batteries. So that's what the US has signed up for. They just said, okay, here, we want to have this thing. And so just the net income from the tax breaks can total up to like $100 billion, right? If you're having
eventually, yeah. But
eventually.
if we're just talking next year, it's not that hard to get. It's not that hard to get to $19, $20 a share, because what people aren't counting for next year, there's three things nobody has in their model, and we know all three of these things are going to happen. Okay, the run rate at the end of December is going to be close to 200 million cars. They're not only going to build 2 million cars. 2 million cars. They're not going to just build 2.2 million cars next year. Okay, if their run rate at the end of the year is 2, and they're going to be adding Cybertruck and semi-truck in addition to the ramps at Austin and Berlin. So there's not a chance in the world it's only going to be 2.2 million cars next year. Then you add in the energy that we just talked about. We know that Lathrop is producing energy. We know that it's producing a lot of containers. We don't know the exact number, but we know it's going to be a lot more than it is now. And then you have the Inflation Reduction Act. We know there's going to be a huge benefit in terms of just pure profit. Just write a check.
I think they may look. Execution risk one, Brian and Randy talked about China, and I was talking to a Wall Street guy, Dan Ives. I don't know whether you heard it. Yeah, he was on my channel a year ago, and China was the biggest risk for him. as well. And I've lived in China and I know what China can do. Uh, but I was talking about the internal execution risk, which is leadership. Like now, Elon busy with Twitter, looking for a new CEO. All these things are great, but minus Elon, does this product roadmap gets executed well? That's a big question, isn't it? From an investment perspective, from the company's growth perspective.
So yeah, everybody, I think pretty much everybody that I know agrees that the loss of Elon Musk is the greatest risk. However, we saw what happened at Apple. We saw everybody thought, boy, Steve Jobs is gone. What's going to happen to Apple? And Apple's just gone like this since Steve Jobs left, even with no innovation, even with no, not none, but even with less really great
iPhone 16, 17, 25.
17, yeah. So we'll put a little better camera on it. So yes, would we miss Elon from Tesla if he left tomorrow? Absolutely. But executing on the stuff that's already there, if your investment friends, people that you talk to, don't take anything else away from this conversation, the number one place in the world that graduates from engineering school want to work is Tesla. The number two place that they want to work is SpaceX. SpaceX and Tesla trade information, knowledge, whatever they need. If Tesla needs some information on materials science, they go to SpaceX. If SpaceX needs information on AI, they go to Tesla, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, lots and lots of back and forth. So they have the very best engineers in the world every year coming out of the universities all over the world saying, I want to go work for these guys. They I believe it was 3 million applications last year. I think they had 3 million applications to work at Tesla last year.
By far. I think the institutional investors would love Tesla without Elon, I can tell you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They might. You're right.
Because they look for certainty, right? They, like, for example, when Tim Cook came and he was considered as a capital allocator, and all he has done is capital allocation, right? He's not done any serious innovation, what Steve Jobs did. But I think the certainty of X amount of numbers, somebody not speaking the loose languages, Elon, speaks any bullshit he likes, right? So maybe these
Rajiv, do you know that Tesla is now this close to being the number one best capital allocator of any company in history?
And that one I have no doubt. If you look at the operating leverage the company is creating, it's massive, it's unseen. And Charlie Munger just said the company as a minor miracle, right? Obviously, I think he was underestimating. I think, guys, we're running kind of out of time. Just one last question I have for you, and Randy and Brian, which is Optimus, right? And I know it can be a whole debate on its own, but Brian, technology perspective, Optimus, I saw a huge improvement from the first when they showed the first time, right? It was just a suit, and second time the person is walking and all the stuff. So it's getting better, right? But technology, how does it look? I mean, you think you feel positive about it?
Yes, I'm very confident about it. So the walking aspect of it was, which they did demonstrate already. But the reason I had no doubt that they would achieve that when they did in a year was because Asimo with the Honda walking robot 20 years ago. So that was basically a solved issue. But the movement, walking is not the main factor. It's the hands and the other aspects of the thing that will be innovative. And the fact that they're applying it and the eyes. And they're applying it to real world problems. Unlike Boston Dynamics, which is a couple hundred guys, very smart people working on stunts, 50 robots, 100 robots, right? So the fact that they're going to work on problems that they know they need to solve in terms of like in the factory or delivery. So just in terms of making a business, this goes to the thing about them, Elon making things profitable while they're doing research, right? So if we got the full self-driving robotaxi level, if the robot all it can do is like get out of the car, carry a box, which is already shown it can do, and then go to the front step, put it down, and walk back to the car, I just have Uber Eats delivery, right? And I do it without a driver. right? If I have to have a driver where it's with me, I'm doing the full self-driving where I'm kind of like monitoring it, I can have these things kind of like being able to go to, do unload, load and unload, but at very low cost because I have my Uber competitor, and then I can then deliver, and I have trucks to deliver things. So then they're already training it with mass amounts of data because all the cars, 3.5 million cars, are already scanning and looking at people walking from the car to the front doorstep. So they have all that visual data that they can then use to train the system, right? So they can repurpose the data to do this training. They already have them working in factories. They had it like doing a few steps. The reason they can easily incorporate them into Tesla factories, SpaceX factories, is because how they have them organized, not like a factory line, but they have work group zones, multiple work group zones, like 5 work groups working on paint. So if I have one work group with robots working on it, it's not really doing anything, it's still learning. I don't have a problem because I have 4 other work groups doing the same paint job. So each task is something they can master in the real world. And then once it's better, become the dominant thing. So that's how they can shift over their whole factory without messing up production by saying, okay, I'm going to have it pick up and move stuff. I'm going to have it do some monitoring step. We already have this digital self-management where I can train my people up and I can use that system for scoring to train my robot. So the ability for him to monetize or to improve the earnings, like, people think, I got to sell 5 million robots in order to get a bunch of money. One, he could sell them as toys and people would buy them. But 2, if I have 150,000 workers and then I make 50,000 of them robots, and let me make 2 or 3 more factories, or I increase the productivity 10%, 20% in the factory, because I'm already so insanely profitable, I just made $1 trillion of shareholder value by incorporating 20,000, 30,000 robots, right? Each robot is 1/30th the weight of a Model Y. So if I can make 1,000 Model Ys, I can make 30,000 robots. So because he's the world's best entrepreneur, the fact that he already has trillions of dollars of resources and 200,000 people working for him,
it's going to be easier. It's going to be easier than building the car, it seems.
It'd be easier than building a car.
Yeah, and Randy, you aligned to that.
Well, so I'm an ex-manufacturer. I had plastics manufacturing business for 28 years. I would be in line right now. I would have already put my money up for the robot that I saw on the demonstration. That robot was able to go pick something up and put it where it belonged. I had jobs for that robot in my factory. Okay. The one that we saw that day. But here's my guaranteed way you can tell your friends about the robot, and they'll all want to put their name in the pot too. I'm sure that both of you have purchased many different kinds of massaging devices. You put them behind you in the chair. You got the ones that go for your feet. You got the ones that, you buy the whole chair and it vibrates and it tries to massage you. And I guarantee you that if I had a robot that could come in right now and give me a back rub where I can go, no, a little higher. No, a little lower. No, a little deeper. No, a little to the right. People would pay $20,000 for that robot. It wouldn't even be a contest.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think, look, fascinating stuff, Brian and Randy. I think huge contribution from you, and I never thought about the company and the way you guys have talked about, and you guys have numbers backing each and everything. It's not like a story. You guys have done your maths, and it's amazing to hear that. And I think on that note, big thank you. I think we can go on hours, it seems, talking about the technology, talking about that, and both of you are so passionate, and I'm kind of a passionate as well as listener as well. But I think the spirit of time will just kind of cut it short. But we possibly could look at some other kind of cooperation as well with Brian and Randy talking again, and
Sure.
Brian decoding the technology with you, and Randy decoding the commercials with you some other time as well. Are you game with that? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, very well. Sounds great.
Happy to come back anytime you'd like.
Okay.
I think one of the big things that we didn't touch on tonight is the moats. And that would be a whole
I
program.
know you talked
by
about
itself.
modes in your book, and I was flipping through the book, and you talked about several kind of modes. So
23,
yeah,
23 moats.
yeah. I think that's it. So I think, as I said, that we're talking about a company which is bigger than several economies in the world, or which is going to be bigger than several developing economies in the world. Put them together. So obviously it's going to be so much to talk about. So we'll come back to it, Brian and Randy. I'll reconnect with you guys if you give me time.
Great.
And that's just so amazing to hear you. And thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
Rajiv.
Okay.